Good morning, students. Today, I, Mrs. Anne Marie, is here to read and explain the next chapter from the book Moments in the Kingdom of Fools. I hope you will enjoy the reading and explanation part. So, let's start in the Kingdom of Fool. So, first of all, let us discuss the title of the story, In the Kingdom of Fools, which means the state where people are not so wise, they are not intelligent. In this story, the king, his ministers, and his advisors are fools. That means that they are not wise and intelligent. When this kind of people rule the kingdom, then what all happens has been told in this story. The introduction of the lesson. Kannada is a regional language mainly spoken in the state of Karnataka. This story is a Kannada folktale. Folktale is a story which is passed on from one generation to another. It is taken from the book Folk Tales from India, written by A.K. Ramajan. In the Kingdom of Fools, explanation. Let's start. In the Kingdom of Fools, both the king and the minister were idiots. Now, idiots means here, it means the people who are not intelligent. In the Kingdom of Fools, the king and his minister both were unintelligent. They didn't want to run things like other kings, so they decided to change night into day and day into night. The king and his minister did not want to run their kingdom like other kings did. So they decided to do something different. They started treating night as day and day as night. And they ordered that the work which was done at night would be done during the daytime, and the work which was done during the daytime will be done during night time. They ordered that everyone should be awake at night till their fields and run their business only after dark and go to bed as soon as the sun came up. Anyone who disobeyed would be punished with death. Now they passed an order that everyone in the kingdom would work at night. Nobody would sleep at night. The farmers would do farming at night, and the ones who ran business would do business at night. As soon as the sun rose, everyone would go to sleep. If someone would disobey the order, he would be punished with death. The people did as they were told for fear of death. The king and the minister were delighted at the success of their project. Now the people were scared that if they did not obey the king's order, they would be sentenced with death penalty. So they obeyed the order, although it was very strange. The king and his minister, both the fools, were very happy that all the people in the kingdom were following their order. Now one day a guru and his disciple arrived in the city. It was a beautiful city. It was broad daylight, but there was no one about. Everyone was asleep. Not a mouse stirring. Even the cattle had been taught to sleep by day. Stirring means here moving around, and guru is saint. Now one day a saint arrived in the kingdom of fools along with one of his disciples, and he saw that it was a beautiful city. It was a sunny day but could not find anyone around. Now they were surprised. Everyone was asleep, and the writer says that not a mouse was stirring. Now they could not find a single mouse moving around, which means that it was so quiet as everyone. Even the tiniest creature, the mice, were asleep. The people had taught that their cattle to sleep during daytime even. So everyone, human as well as animals, were sleeping. Now the two strangers were amazed by what they saw around them and wandered around town till evening, when suddenly the whole town woke up and went about its nightly business. Amazed means shocked, surprised. Now these two strangers to the kingdom of fools were not aware that this kind of order had been passed in the city. So they were surprised to see that everyone was sleeping during daytime. Now they kept on wandering around in the whole city as soon as it was night. Now everyone woke up and started doing their work. Businessmen were doing business and farmers were farming. Now the two men were hungry. Now that the shops were open, they went to buy some groceries. To their astonishment, some found that everything cost the same. a single dudu. Now what is dudu? Dudu is actually money in Kannada language. Okay, now whether they bought a measure of rice or a bunch of bananas, it cost dudu only. Now the Guru and his disciple were delighted. They had never heard of anything like this. They could buy all the food they wanted for a rupee only. Now the Guru and his disciple were very happy because the food in this kingdom was very cheap and you could buy a lot of food just for a rupee. Now, when they had cooked and eaten, the Guru realized that this was a kingdom of fools and it wouldn't be a good idea for them to stay here. Now, when the Guru and his disciple cooked and ate their food, the Guru realized that the kingdom was a kingdom of fools and decided not to stay there any longer because it was unsafe for them. This is no place for us. Let's go, he said his disciple. Who said? The king said to his disciple that we should not stay here anymore because this place is a kingdom of fools. Now, but the disciple didn't want to leave the place. Everything was cheap here. All he wanted was good and cheap food. They were not ready to move from there. Yes, the Guru said, they are all fools. This won't last very long and you can't tell what they will do to you next. Now, Guru even tried to make his disciple understand that and told him that everyone out here was a fool and that fools are very dangerous sometimes. So, the kingdom would not last for a long time and they could harm them too. But the disciple wouldn't listen to the Guru's wisdom. He wanted to stay. The disciple is not foresighted like his guru and could not understand what his guru was trying to say. Now he wanted to live there only and enjoy the cheap food. Now, but yes, the guru finally gave up and said, do what you want. I am going, and left. Now finally the guru left alone, leaving the disciples behind. Now the disciples stayed on, ate his fill every day, bananas and ghee and rice and wheat, and grew fat like a street side sacred bull. Now the disciple stayed back in the kingdom of fools. Every day he ate a lot of food, due to which he became fat as a huge bull. Now one bright day a thief broke into a rich merchant's house. He had made a hole in the wall and sneaked in. And as he was carrying out his loot, the wall of the old house collapsed on his head and killed him on the spot. Now what happened? One day a thief entered a merchant's house. He made a hole in the wall to gain access. Now when he was about to move out of the house, after looting all the things, the wall broke and fell down on his head and he died there only. His brother ran to the king and complained. Whose brother? Thief's brother, yes. Your Highness, when my brother was pursuing his ancient trade, just see, a wall fell on him and killed him. This merchant is to blame. He should have built a good strong wall. You must punish the wrongdoer and compensate the family for the injustice. Now the thief's younger brother went to the king and complained that his brother was following his ancient trade. Ancient trade means, although the ancient trades, robbing is a crime here. Now while he was working, the wall fell on his head and he died. The thief's brother was taking advantage of the king's foolishness. He said that the merchant whose wall has fallen down on his brothers was the culprit. He should have made a strong wall. He requested the king to punish the merchant and get compensation for his family. The king said, justice will be done. Don't worry. And at once summoned the owners of the house. Summon means to call upon someone. Now the king was so foolish that he did not consider the fact that the dead man was committing theft at the time of his death. He only thought that the man died because because the wall fell on him, and the owner of the house whose wall fell on him had to be punished. So he called the merchant. Now when the merchant arrived, the king questioned him. What's your name? Such and such, your highness. Were you at home when the dead man burgled your house? Yes, my lord. He broke in and the wall was weak. It fell on him. The accused pleads guilty. Your wall killed this man's brother. You have murdered a man. We have to punish you. Now, as soon as the merchant appeared, the king asked his name. Then the king asked him that whether he was at home when the dead man, the thief, was burgling his house. The merchant replied that he was at home only. Now, the thief made a hole in the wall and entered his house. And when he was trying to go out, the wall fell down on him because it was weak. Then the king told the merchant that he was guilty. He did wrong due to his weak wall. The thief died and now he would be punished. Now, Lord, said the helpless merchant, I didn't put up the wall. It's really the fault of the man who built the wall. He didn't build it right. You should punish him. Who is that, my lord? This wall was built in my father's time. I know the man. He is an old man now. He lives nearby. Now the merchant pleaded in front of the king and requested that, my lord, it was not my fault. And the wall was weak because the person who made the wall did not construct it properly. Hence, you should punish him. And further, he added that the wall was made during his father's time and the person who built it was very old. But he knew him as he lived nearby. Now the king sent out messengers to bring in the bricklayer who had built the wall. They brought him tied, hang, and food. Bricklayer what? Bricklayer is a person who lays the brick and build the walls. Now, so the king sent his soldiers to call the bricklayer who built the wall, and they tied his hands and feet and brought him in the king's palace. You there, did you build this man's wall in his father's time? Yes, my lord, I did. Now the king asked him that, did he build the wall? And he replied that, yes, he did. Now, what kind of a wall is that you built? It has fallen on a poor man and killed him. You have murdered him. We have to punish you. We have to punish you by death. Now the king said that the man had built a weak wall. The wall fell on the poor thief's head and killed him. The bricklayer would be punished for this for this death. Before the king could order the execution, the poor bricklayer pleaded, please listen to me before you give your orders. It's true, I built this wall and it was not good, but that was because my mind was not on it. I remember very well a dancing girl who was going up and down that street all day with her anklets jingling, and I couldn't keep my eye or my mind on the wall I was building. You must get that dancing girl. I know where she lives. Now everyone is passing on the blame to another person. Now when the king was about to pass an order to execute the bricklayer, he requested the king to listen to him. He agreed that he did not make the wall properly. It was because of the girl who was roaming around in the street and her anklets were making a jingling sounds. Now due to her anklets jingle sound, he was not able to concentrate on his work and so built a weak wall. It was not his mistake. It was the fault of the girl. He added that he knew where this dancing girl lived, so she should be punished instead of him. You are right, the case deepens. We must look into it. It is not easy to judge such complicated cases. Let's get the dancer wherever she is. Now the king was satisfied with the bricklayer's explanation and he was convinced with him. He tells that this case is very complicated and will not be able to solve it so easily. And he ordered his messengers to get the dancing girl. Now, the dancing girl, now an old woman, came trembling to the court. Did you walk up and down that street many years ago while this poor man was building a wall? Did you see him? Yes, my lord, I remember it very well. So, you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling? You were young and you distracted him. So he built a bad wall. It has fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. You have killed an innocent man. You will have to punished. Now the dancing girl had become an old woman and she was trembling and she entered the court. Now the king asked her that many years ago was she dancing and roaming around in the lane while the bricklayer was constructing the wall. Her movement distracted him and she confirmed him. He told her that as she was roaming around with her anklets jingling, it distracted the bricklayer and due to this, the thief died and she would be punished with death. Yes. So she thought for a minute and said, My lord, wait. I know now why I was walking up and down that street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made so many excuses, said he would give it now and he would give it then. And so on all day he made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. Now, what is goldsmith? See, it's a person who makes ornaments out of gold, and scoundrel, a dishonest person. Now, the girl transferred the blame onto another person. She said that she was roaming around in the lane again and again because she had to visit the goldsmith's shop. She had given some gold to him to make jewelry out of it. Now, he was a dishonest person. He was making excuses for not making her ornaments in time. So, he kept on saying her to come after some time. Due to this, she had to go to this house at least a dozen times. So, the dancing girl said it was the fault of the goldsmith. That was when the bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It's the damned goldsmith's fault. Now, poor thing, she's absolutely right, thought the king, weighing the evidence. We have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once. Now, the king says that the poor dancing girl was totally right. And he thought a lot of finally said that now they knew who the real culprit was. And he ordered to bring the goldsmith. Now, now, the king's bailiffs searched for the goldsmith, who was hiding in a corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. Now, what is accusation here? It means to blame someone. And here the word came bailiffs. Bailiffs means a law officer who makes sure that the decisions of a court are obeyed. Now, the bailiffs in the king court went in search of the goldsmith and brought him to the court. Now, the goldsmith was hiding inside his shop as he feared being arrested. Now, when he was brought in front of the king, he told his side of the story. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true I made these dancers come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know, impatient rich men are. Yes, he said that the dancing girl was right. He made many excuses and made her visit his shop again and again. But it was not his fault. He had an order from a rich merchants and they had wedding at the place and were in a hurry to get their order. And that is why the dancing girl's work was getting delayed. Now, who is this merchant, rich merchant, who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer and which made a mess of his wall and which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him? The king asked. So the goldsmith named the merchant and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now justice had come full circle, thought the king. Back to the merchant. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying, It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead, I am innocent. Now the goldsmith said that the merchant was the same merchant whose house wall had fallen down. Justice has come full circle means that the story ended at the same person from it had started. Now the thief died under the wall of the same merchant whose jewelry this goldsmith was making. Now once again the merchant was called. He was crying and he knew that the king was yes, once again the merchant was called and he was crying and he knew that the king was foolish and he would give him death sentence. He said that it was not he who had ordered the jewelry, but it was his father. His father was dead and it was none of his fault. Now, but the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively, It's true, your father is the true murderer. Murderer. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die. Now the king consulted his minister and gave the decision that the merchant's father was the murderer, the thief died because of him, as the merchant's father was not alive, and someone had to be punished for the crime. So he said that the merchant's son, who had inherited everything from his father, would have to take the punishment for his wrongdoing as well. So he added that when he had seen the merchant for the first time, at that moment he had a feeling that he was the culprit. The king announced that now the merchant would have to die, and he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. Now, as the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. He appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. Stake is what? It means it's a post with a sharp pointed end used to pierce through something. An execution, an official killing of someone. Now, when this new weapon was getting ready, the minister felt that the merchant was very thin and he could not be executed in this way. He told this to the king, and king got worried. Now, what shall we do? When suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. Now, the king got an idea that they should catch hold of a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. Now, the merchant would not be put to the death because he was too thin to be executed with a stake. Now they thought of punishing another person instead of the merchant, the one who was fat enough to be executed with a stake. Yes. Now the servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. Now, finally, the king sent his servants around the kingdom to look for a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. They found the guru's disciple who had become very fat because of overeating. What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am sannyasi, he cried. That may be true, but it's the royal decree that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake, they said, and carried him to the place of execution. Decree is an order. Now the disciple said that he was a sannyasi. He had not done anything wrong. He was innocent. Then why were they taking him? The king's servant said that he was innocent, but that were order to catch hold of a fat man who could be executed with the stake, and he was fit for it. And that is why they were taking him along. Now he remembered his wise guru's words. This is a city of fools. You don't know what they will do next. The disciple is reminded of his gurus that Guruji, who was a wise man, had told him once that it was a city of fools and they could harm him. Now they were taking him along to execute him. While he was waiting for death, while he was waiting for death, he prayed to his guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The guru saw everything in a vision, and he had magic powers also, and he could see far, and he could see the future as well as he could see the present and the past also. He arrived at once to save his disciple who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food. Now the guru arrived there to save his disciple. The disciple was trapped in a difficult serious situation. Now they were about to execute him, although he had not done anything wrong. So the guru came to rescue him from this situation. Now as soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him. "Oh, wisest of kings, who is greater, the guru or the disciple?" "Of course the guru, no doubt about it. Why do you ask?" "Then put me to the stake first." "Who said this?" "Guru said it," because that all whatever he was actually interacting with the king, was telling to the king, that all was planned. Now then, put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me. Yes. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor. Clamor means to insist on something. "Me first. You brought me here first. Put me to death first, not him. Now, both disciple heard his guru's word and he started shouting that he wanted to die first. Now, the guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled by this behavior. He asked the guru, "Why do you want to die? We choose him because we needed a fat man for the stake." "You shouldn't ask me such questions. Put me to death first," replied the guru. "All right, but why? There's some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand." Now, the king felt that there was some mystery behind it. The guru wanted to die before his disciple and was so eager to die. There must be some reason behind it. "Now, will you promise to put me to death if I tell you?" asked the guru. The guru asked the king to promise him that he would execute him first if he told him the secret about why he wanted to be executed first. Now the king gave him some solemn words. The guru took him aside out of the servant's earshot and whispered to him, "Do you know why we want to die right now? The two of us, we have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. That stake is the stake of a God of justice. It's new, it has never had a criminal on it." Now the king promised that he would execute him first. Then the guru took the king aside and slowly told him that they had roamed around the whole world but had not seen a city and a king like him. He added that the stake which they would use to kill the disciple was a stake of justice, and as it was new, it had not killed any criminal. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country. Just see. And whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember. Now, here the word came, ascetic life. It means a strict life, life of disciple, sannyasi. Now, the one who would die next would be reborn as the minister of the kingdom. The guru added that he was tired of the life of a sannyasi. He and his disciple wanted to live the life of a king and a minister. So he says that the king execute him first so that he is reborn as a king, and after his disciple be executed so that he is reborn as a minister. The king was now thrown into deep thought. He didn't want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He needed time, so he ordered the execution postponed to the next day and talked in a secret with his minister. Postpone means to put off something for a later time. Now, after listening to the guru, the king was in deep thought. He did not want that in the next life his kingdom be snatched away from him. He discussed this with his minister. It's not right for us. Yes, it's not right for us to give over the kingdom to other in the next life. Yes, let's go on the stake ourselves and we will be reborn as king and minister again. Yes, minister again. Let's go on the stake ourselves and we'll be reborn as the king and minister again. Holy men do not tell lies. He said, and the minister agreed. Now the king told his minister that he did not want that in the next life his kingdom be taken away. And he added that the person was a holy man and holy men did not speak lies. Okay, so he says that they should die first so that they are reborn as king and minister of the kingdom. So he told the executioners, "We will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first. Then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake." Now the king told his executioners that he would send the criminals at night. Firstly, they should execute the person who came first and then execute the second person. Now they should be careful and not make any mistake. Now that night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. Now at night, what happened? The king and his ministers went to the prison where the guru and disciple were kept. They wore the clothes of guru and his disciples so that they resembled them. As it was told to the servants already that they came and took them along and put them into the stake for execution. Now in this way, with his intelligence, the guru was able to execute his foolish king and his foolish minister. Now, when the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. Panic means frightened. Now, when the dead bodies of the king and the minister were taken away to be thrown, the people trembled to see the dead bodies of their king and his minister. Now, they saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The city was in confusion. Everyone was trembling because those dead bodies were of not of guru and his disciple, but of king and his minister. Now all night they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people suddenly thought of the guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave town unnoticed. Now everyone in the kingdom was mourning the death of their king and his minister. Now, in the morning, some people thought of the guru and his disciple and felt that they should go to them. As the guru and his disciple were planning to leave the kingdom, the people stopped them. We people need a king and a minister, said someone. Others agreed. They begged the guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. Now, the people of the kingdom thought, the people and the kingdom thought that they needed a king and a minister, and so they requested the guru and his disciple to be the king and the minister of the kingdom. I didn't take many arguments to persuade the disciple, but it took longer time to persuade the guru. Means the disciple agreed quickly, but it took some time to make the guru agree upon this. Now, they finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all the old laws. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day, and you could get nothing for a doo-doo. It became like any other place now. So the guru agreed to be the king of the kingdom, but on the condition that from then everyone would work in the day and sleep at night. Also, the cost of thing would vary and not be one doo-doo for anything as was the system earlier. And it would be like any other place where everything had different rates. Now, finally, the guru converted the kingdom of fools into a normal kingdom. Now, I hope you like the story. All right, and the moral of the story is that always stay away from the company of fools and not fall for greed. See, the disciple thought he would stay in the city of fulfill and his desires, but he never knew it would lead to his death in such a meaningless way. So stay safe and healthy. Have a good day.